Does anybody else find it funny that those who categorically are against the government post signs like this in the beginnings of their videos in the hopes that the same government which they despise will somehow protect them for using copyrighted material? Hypocrite much? Marble put out himself another video full of various echoed claims. Just figured I'd answer them.
Mainstream science says not to trust your own senses, as if what you were born with isn't good enough for you to use to interpret your own reality.
Science says no such thing. Science is simply an extension of our understanding to better define what our senses come up short on.
What you need to do instead is just leave it up to people who are more intelligent than yourself to give you their interpretation of reality.
People who dedicate their lives to expanding the knowledge of mankind in ways that can be tested, retested, and verified. And yet, Daryl, what have you produced other than the echoes of other flat earthers? Hell, your stuff isn't even original. We interrupt this broadcast for a flat earth quote mine.
The way we teach science is you're just some empty vessel and we pour the science into you and then you regurgitate it on an exam.
Like a good citizen, like a good sheep.
Okay, go ahead. Play your quote mine. Now let's play the whole quote.
There's something deeper going on in our society that somehow enables people to believe they're making cogent arguments when they're not.
They're not.
And so, you know what? I think it is. The way we teach science is you're just some empty vessel and we pour the science into you and then you regurgitate it on an exam.
Right.
Whereas science is a way of thinking. It's a way of understanding and probing the operations of nature.
A lot of people are coming back to a conclusion that their five senses are, in fact, the only tools that they really need.
Well, since you like Tyson so much.
Human perception system is rife with all ways of getting it wrong, okay? But we don't like thinking of ourselves that way. We have high opinions of our human biology when in fact we should not. I'll give you an example of how it reveals itself. We've all bought and enjoyed books called Optical Illusions, right? Well, we all love optical illusions, but that's not what they should call the book. They should call them brain failures, okay? Because that's what it is. It is a complete failure of human perception, all right? All it takes is a few sketches that are cleverly done. Your brain can't figure it out, all right? So, we are poor data-taking devices. That's why we have such a thing as science, because we have machines that don't care what side of the bed they woke up in the morning, don't care what they said to their spouse that day, doesn't care whether they had their morning caffeine. They'll get the data right, okay?
And speaking of Marble senses, remember when he said that the moon was transparent, and that's how you could see the blue through it? But then he actually showed from high altitude balloon footage that the blue stops before the moon, so it's in front of it. Remember when Marble's senses said that he saw the sun in the UK when he didn't? Remember when Marble's senses said he saw the sun in Australia when he didn't? And remember when Marble's senses said, look at that hot spot, that only proves a close sun, but couldn't explain the hot spot that was actually happening on his forehead? And remember when Marble said that the eclipse does not support the globe model, yet didn't provide any other explanation for it at all? And remember when Marble's senses said that there were straight line shadows occurring on the moon, and he claimed that science was saying it was because of the Earth? And remember when Marble's senses didn't tell him that he was traveling at around 500 miles per hour in the plane while he was doing his worthless spirit level test? Yeah, I can make a whole video about Marble's senses and how they don't really produce any evidence of anything. But, you know, let's continue.
Let's have a quick discussion about the ISS.
I wonder if you're going to bring your senses to bear on that.
What we know about the ISS is that apparently it's supposed to be the size of a football field.
Uh-huh.
This thing was supposedly constructed in the upper atmosphere.
Yeah.
Once you leave the surface of the Earth, you get to a certain altitude and then gravity just turns off.
Wait, what?
Once you leave the surface of the Earth, you get to a certain altitude and then gravity just turns off.
One more time?
Once you leave the surface of the Earth, you get to a certain altitude and then gravity just turns off.
Where in the hell did you get that bullshit from? Is this plane 90 miles above the surface of the Earth? No, of course it's not. The weightlessness experienced by astronauts orbiting the Earth is the exact same thing as what's going on here in the zero-G aircraft. Orbiting the Earth is basically a constant state of free fall, but moving across the surface of the Earth fast enough that the ground falls away from you as fast as you are falling towards it.
So we're supposed to believe that the International Space Station is 250 miles above us, the size of a football field, and it's speeding around the Earth, orbiting every day multiple times, going at the breakneck speed of 17,000 miles per hour, somewhere around that.
Yep. Thanks for defining that.
Well, recently I forced myself to watch about 15-20 minutes of the ISS live feed.
First off, no, you didn't. You were watching the NASA Live Earth from Space HDVR Heart ISS live feed, hashtag Astronomy Day 2018. Subscribe now on the Space and Universe YouTube channel. Most of that stuff is just pre-recorded stuff. As a matter of fact, you can go up there right now and see the stuff that Marbles recorded for this video. And by the way, remember that he said he forced himself to watch it.
You know, someone in the feed says, okay, look, here we are about to come up on California.
Pre-recorded. Like I said, I'll bet you could see the same footage right now on that channel.
The ISS is supposed to be going 17,000 miles per hour.
Okay.
If we're looking at the speed of the ISS approaching this landmass,
Not really a good reference to use a handheld camera with wide-angle lens distortion as a measurement for speed. Plus, the landmass that you refer to actually is California. It's not hard to look up.
and the length of the United States from west coast to east coast is said to be 2,680 miles across.
Uh-huh.
Think to yourself, does this really look like it's moving at a speed to where it's going to be able to cross over the entirety of the continental United States in 10 minutes?
On a globe? Yes. On flat Earth? It's a lot shorter.
In my opinion, I'm going to go with no on that one.
Well, it's a good thing that your opinion doesn't come with a stopwatch.
But, you know, I rely on my own senses, my own common sense, basically, to say, no, it doesn't really look like this thing is going to cross over the whole continent in 10 minutes going at that speed.
There goes your senses again. Need I say more? And now you know where your senses stop and experimental science begins.
So anyway, moving along, whatever they recorded this video with was obviously a fisheye lens.
Oh man. When are flat earthers ever going to realize that neither NASA, nor the ISS, nor any other international space agency is trying to prove the Earth is spherical? None of them are. That's the same thing as trying to claim that Boeing and Airbus are trying to prove that heavier than air flight is possible.
Alright, now moving along, the ISS is said to be 250 miles above the Earth. That places it in a level of the atmosphere called the thermosphere.
Yes, the thermosphere, where trace gases in the upper atmosphere can be heated to around 2,000 degrees Fahrenheit. And yes, Marbles is going to try and convince you that this means that the region itself is a 2,000 degree furnace. which is as stupid as saying if you have a candle in a room, then that whole room should be 1500 degrees. Yes, that's the temperature of a candle. Look it up. And yes, shielding will protect you from being fried. Similar to sitting under an umbrella in the sun stops you from otherwise getting a sunburn. Or how those shades protect your eyes from UV rays. I'm starting to notice that your senses are a little bit dull there, Marbles. But now Marbles will give you his scientific research-rich analysis of spacesuits.
Looks like these same suits that they use in these these pools that they do their training in.
Really? That was it?
Also ridiculous because the way that water works is not exactly the way that space would work.
Y'all gonna love what he means by that.
Because water, what that does, that kind of creates pressure.
Yes, another flat earther who thinks that NASA tests spacesuits in a pool.
Well, whereas if you're in a vacuum, there's going to be more expansion, in theory.
In theory? Never mind.
If they're trying to mimic the idea of zero gravity in a pool, then yeah, that might work.
You think?
But as far as the way that the suits are going to interact with space, that doesn't really work out the same.
They train in a pool to see if the astronaut, with all of his or her encumbrances of the spacesuit and tools, etc., can perform the planned tasks. They are not there to test the suit or simulate a vacuum.
Also, I'd have to conclude, from what I've seen, that the ISS live feed, it's on a loop.
No, the actual live feed is not a loop. Again, some channels mirror the feed or play pre-recorded footage, but the actual live feed isn't looped.
Because I've actually watched a lot of the ISS live feed.
Wait, what?
Because I've actually watched a lot of the ISS live feed.
Wait, one more time?
Because I've actually watched a lot of the ISS live feed.
So you watch a lot of it? But didn't you just say...
Well, recently I forced myself to watch about 15-20 minutes of the ISS live feed.
Man, I love it when you contradict yourself in the same video. Such a typical flat earther.
Seriously, take some time. If you feel the need to, take some time. And every now and then just pop on. And you'll start noticing that, okay, this looks like the same stuff all the time.
Here, use this address for the actual live feed. So all in all, Marbles has nothing new to say. Again, echoing the claims of other flat earthers, because he doesn't perform his own research, because he doesn't do any of his own work, because all he does is just repeat what everybody else has said, things that have either been debunked or things that flat earthers are actually just too lazy to test. This is what he's admitting right here.
It's a lot harder to believe that whole 93 million miles away special type of radiation travels through the infinite vacuum of space and then suddenly ends up here and suddenly we can be warm.
It's a good thing that there's people in the world who actually like to be challenged to figure things out. Unlike flat earthers. Y'all have a nice day.
Oh my God.